Hello, how are you today? It's a Friday afternoon. You know, everyone says that we're supposed to establish an audience even before our book is released. So we get that theoretically, but how in the world do you actually do that? My guest today is going to help us understand that. From starting a simple blog to each of her three books receiving awards and or reaching number one in Amazon sales. L.B. Johnson, author L.B. Johnson, shares how her audience, serving her audience, and connecting with other professionals helped her achieve those stupendous results. Hi, I'm Patricia Durgan, the Christian Message Coach, and this is Marketers on a Mission. We present marketing tutorials and interviews to help Christian writers and speakers take their message online. This is episode number 115, The Power of an Author's Online Relationship. Hello, LB. How are you today?
Good afternoon. I'm great. Appreciate the opportunity to share my story with all your listeners.
LB does not have a camera on her computer, so she's going to be joining us just via telephone. Can you give us an update, LB? Tell us, you've had enough careers to go through 3 lifetimes. How did you accomplish so many things? And then the fourth, as a matter of fact. So becoming a best-selling author, how did you accomplish so many things at such a young age?
Well, I was, I guess what you'd call it, precocious in school. I actually grew up in a very small rural town. My dad worked at a local factory. My mom was a retired deputy sheriff who adopted me late in life. And I just had big dreams to get out of a factory town. I wanted more for my life than going to a stinky, smoky pulp mill every day and working. And my dad was an accountant there. He had a good job, but he'd just come home just tired and his clothes would smell. And it wasn't the best environment to work in. And I wanted more for my life than that. So I really tried to excel in school, and I actually was able to start taking classes at our local community college at age 14 instead of some of my high school classes, and then I went full-time to the college in the summer. So by the time I graduated high school, I had 2 years of college, almost 3 years of college under my belt. So that gave me a leg up, and then it was just a matter of what did I want to do for a living, and I actually got a job at our local small airport pumping fuel into the little airplanes at the flight school. And I got a introductory flight lesson since I was an employee, and I just absolutely loved it. And I came home and told my dad that I want to be a pilot. I think he thought I was crazy, but 4 years later I was flying for a small commuter airline. Then I was a pilot. I flew for the airlines. I flew for the U.S. government in a couple positions. And finally, 9/11 happened, and that was the year I was just burnt out from flying. So I actually had just gone into a government position using my law enforcement degree in 2001, and I've done that ever since.
So how many jobs do you currently have?
I just have one. I work for what we call a 3-letter alphabet group, a fairly high-level position. And then I write, and then I'm a dog mom. I have a rescue dog. I have an engineer husband, and I have a 98-year-old dad that I help care for. So I stay busy, to say the least.
Yes, absolutely. Don't you three have a home that you enjoy that's very special? It's a special age and has a special panache to it?
Oh, our house, yes. It's a 100-year-old mission bungalow in Chicago that we bought pretty much just, as is. It needed a ton of work, but I'm married to an engineer who knows how to do electrical stuff and plumbing, and he enjoys that. So we've restored the house, and you walk in, it looks like it did 100 years ago. The wood's in impeccable condition. All the stained glass is just as if new. And we've done the restoration as far as appliances and cabinetry that needed to be replaced, done them in a style so they look 100 years old. So it's like walking into another time when you walk in. It's very comforting.
And you told me earlier that you don't even have a television. So then we're talking about a very peaceful environment.
Yeah, well, we have a flat screen in my husband's workshop in case we need to get tornado warnings. But we realized we just were never watching TV. We watch like TV series and videos and movies, but we watch those on my computer monitor in our den. I just have a giant monitor, and we just watch things on tape. We weren't using cable. We were paying $800 a year for it. So we just gave our TV away, and we just watched occasional movies. But it makes for a very quiet house. I just like having the TV off in the evening.
Yes, yes. Between very few electronics and having a 100-year-old house and living in a wonderful area, it sounds like it's the perfect match there.
Yeah, my husband, he owned the place when we met and got engaged, and I had my own home, and he told me, we could move to my house or I could move in here, and I love this little place. And so we just sold my house and put that money into savings to help my father as he aged, and moved right in. And I basically make sandwiches while he does all the work, but we've done a lot of improvements on it.
I appreciate both on your Facebook profile. I enjoy and other people do too, enjoy watching each step of the home improvement as it progresses. And then also you are a fantastic cook. You give out great recipes with photographs, so that makes everybody's mouth water.
Yeah, people don't realize I don't eat like that every day, or I need my own zip code. We just usually do one or two really nice blowout meals, and then the rest of the time we do very helpful salads and soups and whatnot.
That makes more sense. I couldn't figure out how you could eat such wonderfully rich foods and so filling, and gravies and sauces, and still be as slim as you are. So that helps. It gives me a little bit of hope.
Yeah, from Friday night to Sunday morning, we call that fatter day, and anything goes as far as cooking and eating Friday night to Sunday morning.
That's very wise. We have a similar policy, but so I understand the concept. Let's talk for a moment about the fact that you're very open with your personal story. You've endured hardship early on. Your mom died of cancer. Your dad was dealing with the grief. Your older brother was in the Navy. So you pretty much had to process that yourself. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah. And it took me down some paths I shouldn't have gone, for which, of course, there's always consequence.
And you are a product of an adoptive home, of being loved in an adoptive environment. Tell us more about that, please. How the topic of adoption affected your life.
Yeah, I was adopted as an infant. I also had a brother that was also adopted. We found out later we weren't blood siblings, but we were adopted together, raised by my mom, who was former deputy sheriff, and my dad, who was former military police, and had just a wonderful small town, middle class upbringing. But like I said, when life just kind of imploded in my teens, I was going to college, and I ended up getting pregnant by a young man that had, promised me the moon and marriage and everything else, and then just completely disappeared when I told him I was pregnant. And there was no thinking about what I would do. My dad said he'd support any decision as far as keeping the baby or giving it up, but I wanted my daughter to have the kind of life I had with two parents that loved her unconditionally and a Christian home. So I gave her up in an open adoption to a local company that our church family knew.
And but the tables have turned, haven't they, as the years went by? Now you have a relationship with her. Is that right?
Yes. The agreement was that if she wished to meet me when she turned 18, they would provide contact information. If she didn't, I would respect that and would not reach out to her. But she called me on her 18th birthday, and I'm not her mom. I'm just her friend. She's got a wonderful mother. And when I met my daughter for the first time, her mom came with me, came with her. Uh-huh. So yeah, we're friends. We talk. I get pictures of my grandchildren. To them, I'm just, Auntie L.B. But I have a relationship with her that just is enough to know that although I'm not an active part of our life, I know she's happy.
Mm-hmm. That's a sweet story that must touch your heart on a regular basis.
Yes.
Thank you, Lord. So let's talk about the Book of Barkley. And I'm interested in how you had all these careers. Then you became an author, and you told the story of the book of in your personal story in the Book of Barkley. Help us understand that timeline, please.
Well, I had a rough year in 2014. Barkley was my black lab, who I just dearly loved. He got me through a lot of hardship and some lonely times when I was younger, and really opened me up to making friends, being more social, and also brought me back to my Christian faith, which I kind of walked away from after some, earlier heartbreak. And it really, it's hard to think that a dog could change your life, but in a way he did. But I lost him very, very suddenly to an aggressive cancer. And within a couple of weeks, I lost my only brother, and also to a sudden aggressive cancer. So losing them both literally within, a couple of weeks of one another was heartbreaking. And to cope with the grief, I started just writing our story, my story, growing up, being adopted, giving my daughter up, getting this silly dog that just had one misadventure after another. He was quite a handful, but very, very loving personality. And then losing my dog. And it's a story that, even though it's a memoir, anyone that's ever loved a pet, like a family member, will resonate. This book will resonate with them, and it did. It literally became the #1 bestseller in several countries and continues to be a bestseller. So I've been very pleased. It also won the Reader's Favorite International Book Award about 3 years ago. So it's the book that I think I'm the most proud of, though it's not everyone's favorite book. Everyone that reads my books all has a favorite, and they're all different. But the Book of Barkley was deeply personal for me, and I really enjoyed writing it.
And you had the privilege of being with him and him with you for 10 years, right?
It was about 10 or 11 when he passed, yes. I got him as a puppy.
Did your husband, your current husband, did he get to meet Barkley?
Pardon?
Did your current husband get to meet Barkley?
Yes, and his and my love story is in the book. Barkley was with us on the day we met, and we ended up sitting in a little outside cafe where Barkley could just lay on the pavement and have some water. And we just honestly just planned to say hi, and we ended up talking for hours, and 2 years later we were married.
Mm-hmm. So Barkley approved.
Yeah, Barkley approved, yes.
Thank goodness. You also have you have a total of 4 books, 3 that you've offered and 1 that you've participated in. Let's talk for a moment about Saving Grace, A Story of Adoption. That's also very personal, isn't it?
Yes, it's also memoir, but its theme is, unlike Barkley, which was a pet-themed book, the theme of Saving Grace is the adoption journey, both as an adoptee and a birth mother. And it was written in a series of vignettes, mostly first person, where I would just take stories of my life and write them in a journal, so that if I did meet my daughter someday, I could share my life with her in written form. And that journal became a book. I didn't just transpose the journal into the book, but I used the small snippets of stories that I jotted in this journal, and I fleshed them out into chapters. So the book is really written in a series of almost letters to my daughter, which was a different style of writing than I did with the Book of Barkley, but it's very personal, and it really was well received by a lot of people, and was also a #1 bestseller on Amazon for many, many months.
We're going to talk a little bit more about how you participated, how you encouraged that, and the connections that you made. But before we get there, tell us also about Small Town Rose. That's a totally different story too.
Yes, Small Town Rose is a Christian book. My other 2 books, although they're not Christian in genre, they have heavy elements of faith and Christianity, but I wouldn't define them in the Christian nonfiction realm. Small Town Rose is strictly a Christian novel, but not written in a manner of sending a specific message or touting any particular faith, but just the faith we all have in a higher power and the faith we have in our families and our community and how that all bonds together through hardship. The story is set in a fictional small town in rural Illinois, and it involves a young woman who, after losing her parents, is forced to move into a small house she inherits, leaving her dream of being an FBI agent. She ends up as a police officer in this very, very small town, which was really not the life she wanted. But it turned into be an amazing journey for her that led her to love and new family. So it was very personal for me to write. So the story itself is complete fiction and not based on any town I've lived in or any people I know. But writing fiction was a lot more difficult for me than nonfiction because I had to have dialogue, and I've never actually done dialogue before. But the book was very well received and sold thousands of copies the first few months it went out. And it also won first place in the 2017 Reader's Favorite International Book Award for fiction of religious themes. So that I was very, very proud of.
Very few people write 3 books and each of them receives an award or multiple awards. That's just very rare. Congratulations to you. What a blessing.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your, your marketing. First of all, let's start with Kirkus. Am I pronouncing it correctly, Kirkus?
Yes. Oh, Kirkus Awards is, Kirkus Magazines is a book review magazine, an actual physical magazine, not just an online presence. They're very well respected amongst publishing houses. Everyone told me not to submit the book of Barkley to Kirkus for review because I was told, oh, they hate indie authors. And that was just a perception of people, not actual reality. But they were like, don't give it, they won't like it. You're an indie author. They only pick big authors. And I thought that was a misconception. So I just went ahead and submitted the book, and it ended up being a featured book in their online magazine, which only a small percentage of their reviews actually end up in the magazine. So once it showed up in printed form with a wonderful review, the book really took off.
And to be your first one, it's just phenomenal. It's just unbelievable. What an honor to you. And you had done research, I'm sure, so you understood the process, but how do you think that, could you put into words how you think that opened the doors for your successive books?
Well, it gave me credibility as an author. People could go and see, okay, she's written a book, and of course not everyone's going to like your book. No matter how extraordinary your book is, there's always going to be 1% of the people that read it that just either don't like it or it's over their head. So, you always have to take, the occasional poor review with, many, many good reviews. Every author knows that. But it had so many 4-star reviews on Amazon and so many magazine accolades. It was in several magazines, local and national, was just shout outs to, read this book. This is a great book. And it sort of just snowballed at that point. And I think I really knew that it achieved real critical success when I was forwarded a picture of actor Peter Mayhew, who plays Chewbacca on Star Wars. And it was a picture of him out of costume wearing a Chewbacca t-shirt holding up the Book of Barkley while the movie was being shot. And at that point I thought, wow, this book is really, it's really sending a message of hope and joy. And even when things go bad and you lose loved ones, there's something to hold on to with a memory that will improve your life and propel you forward. And that's the story I wanted to tell with the book, and people were getting it.
And don't you tell us about how you use the proceeds for each of your books, please?
How I use what?
The proceeds for each of your books.
Oh, yes. Well, like I said, I'm very blessed to have a good job. I have a doctorate in one of the forensic sciences, and I have steady employment, and my husband is an engineer. So we live very, very simply. Everything we own is paid for, and we live very modestly. So I made the decision to donate 100% of all my book sales to animal rescue all over the U.S. and Canada, as well as Search Dog Foundation out in California. Search Dog Foundation trains rescue dogs to search out living human beings in rubble or avalanche areas or storm areas following natural disasters. It's extremely expensive to train a dog, almost $10,000 to train one dog. So every year I sponsor the training of a dog with my book sales.
And you've done that from the beginning, haven't you, LB?
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah, every dollar that's come in has been given to animal rescues, and I donate to some that are tiny. I donate to some that are big. Just whenever I get a royalty check, I just start writing checks or going to their website and hitting PayPal. And it just has been very wonderful because I've established relationships with many of these small shelters, and I get Christmas cards from them every year, and I've become friends with some of them. So it's been really a really positive experience, and one I'm really glad I did.
We have some comments on Facebook that I'm going to share with you in just a moment, but I want to say first, it makes me wonder when I hear someone who has such an outpouring of feeling such a good acceptance of your work, so many sales, and all the factors that come with the author life that you're describing to me, who donates 100% of her royalties to animal rescue and shelter. There's got to be a tie there from the Holy Spirit connecting you three together, you as an individual, the recipients, and then the people of the shelter, your proceeds and royalties, and then your readers as well. Don't they feel that they're somehow participating in that cause?
Yes. And I've had people from my church. I belong to a little Lutheran church out in the western suburbs of Chicago, and they've asked me, well, how do you write? How do you write so deeply? And I said, God gives me the words. I just drink coffee.
I love that. That's perfect. So let me check Facebook here. Chloe Flanagan says, what an interesting background you have, especially the adoption story and the pilot story. And you actually have done other things as well, but the adoption from both sides and the pilot story. Didn't you say there was something about you being hit in the head when you were on a jet engine? From a jet engine?
Oh, I was removing an engine cover off a jet engine, and I had a big bungee cord, and I was wrestling with it, and it snapped back and just nailed me in the forehead, knocking me on my rear end, and everyone on the ramp was laughing their head off, but it hurt.
Of course. Janice Hall Hex says dogs are wonderful friends and great therapists.
Indeed.
And so true. So tell me how did you develop your online presence? Because you started with just a regular blog like regular people do. And in a year you had 30,000 hits a month. Would you educate us?
30,000 hits a week.
A week?
A week. I've had 12 million visitors on the blog. Well, this is going to take a little while to tell, so bear with me. But, when you talk about online presence, a lot of people don't really know what that means. And a lot of people don't know if that's really a vital concern for a writer. Because some people say, well, shouldn't we be just focusing on doing the writing? But while concentrating on the writing is good, and that would seem like a dream for everyone, it doesn't add up to book sales. I've read some of the most incredible fiction from amazingly talented authors, especially in the Christian genre, where the books just weren't selling. And they had zero online presence other than their Facebook friends. And if you're going to be in today's diverse competitive publishing landscape, you need to have a top online presence, almost as much as you need to be on top of your writing. Yes. And when we're talking about online presence, we're referring to a host of things, from websites to blogs to social media channels. You've got Twitter, you've got Instagram, you got Pinterest, there's all sorts of platforms. And I'm kind of the odd duck here, even though I'm middle-aged, but I'm not elderly by any sense of the imagination. I still have a flip phone. So there's some apps like Instagram that I don't use, but there's a lot that I do. So there's a lot of things you got to consider when you're setting up a social media presence prior to launching your book or even writing your book is even better. But they all come down to one thing. You've got to ensure that when a potential reader or client Googles your name, your author name, you're going to find something. Mm-hmm. So before you dive headfirst into the waters of the web, you've got to consider this. You've got to figure out the audience you're going to try and reach through your online platform and then set it up. The main thing is that you got to figure out who you want to target. If you're an author, this means identifying, a target market for your book and understand how they're going to spend their time online. If you're writing for a primarily Christian audience, then you're going to look at writing posts that speak to that community. Although only one of my books, Small Town Roads, is a specific and Christ-focused message, and my other books discuss more of family and faith, all speak to a similar audience, even if some of those people may not consider themselves as, quote-unquote Christian, but they're open to reading the genre because they like your writing. They engage with you as an individual. They form this relationship by back and forth comments and posts and responding to their comments and responding to their, online presence if they share a difficulty or a death. And, you're reaching out as a community. It's a two-way street, and you have to give back to your readers as much as they give to you, or you won't have readers. In my readership, what we have in common is we all love animals. We come from various faiths, but we love animals. We love our God. We're family-oriented, and we enjoy sharing things that make us smile and think without politicizing anything. Mm-hmm. You can't politicize a recipe. You can't politicize a silly dog. We try and keep it that way so everyone feels welcome at all times. And then once you know who your audience is, you've got to remember this. I think the one thing you've got to remember at all times, that the key to your online presence as a writer is connection. And the whole point of having an author platform is to connect with people, your readers, current and potential, publishers, industry figures, and especially other writers. So what starts out as, this is interesting to read, can develop into a real relationship wherein the reader feels a true connection to another life, and will continue to engage with you and will continue to share in your future stories. And for example, my first two books were memoir, and through social media, I developed a online friendship with a best-selling female author in that genre who actually publishes a magazine called Memoir Abelia, which is just about writing in that genre, and I ended up on the cover and she interviewed me, and I never would have had that opportunity to promote my book in that platform had I not reached out to her to social media and read her books and reviewed her books. So again, once you've got the audience, then it's a matter of picking out what format. Do you want to do a blog? Do you want to do this Twitter feed? Do you want to do Facebook? But honestly, I found the blog to be the best. You can blog about so many things. You have to post on a regular basis. What I do is I kind of brainstorm every week and write as many posts as I can so that if I'm busy with work or husband or house or family, then I can have something come up. And I vary the content. People don't want to read the same thing every day, and they don't want to read something super serious every day. So one day you'll have, a recipe, another day you'll have a short story, something that's not in one of my books. I stay away from politics completely. I talk about faith and family mostly, funny stories of growing up in the 60s, in the 70s. But every day is something different. People go visit because they don't know what they're going to see. And I keep some of it lighthearted, some of it, spiritual and reflective. But it's different every day, and I found people just keep coming back and coming back. But when that blog was really successful, then, my first book had launched. And although you think that, okay, you've got 30,000 people reading your blog, you're going to sell thousands of books. And not necessarily. A lot of people go to blogs because it's free. We say free ice cream. So although I did sell quite a few books to readers on my blog, you don't sell the numbers of your readership. You're not going to sell 30,000 books because you have 30,000 people visit every week. You might sell 30. But what you do is you have people that, because they feel a connection to you, that even if they may not buy the book and they're just going to borrow one from somebody or get it at the library, they'll post about your book on their blog. And then someone else picks it up and can I post it? And soon your book is on 100 different blogs, and those people start buying it because they're like, well, I've never read this person's stuff. I like this. I want to read more of it. And that really helps boost sales. So I think for me, blogging was the most prolific as far as selling.
Mm-hmm. So you've invested your time in the right place for the right reasons, and you're reaping the rewards. Not doing it for the rewards, but we can't deny that there are rewards for taking care of people, serving our ideal audience, right?
Yes.
I also like the fact that you are talking about the values that you share with your audience and the mission, overall mission that you share. A lot of people don't talk about that aspect of it. It's sort of ephemeral, but it's absolutely a part of our life and can be, in some instances, the strongest connection that we have with our readers.
Yes, very much so.
You've really changed a lot of people's lives in lots of different ways, haven't you? Had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I found a connection very, very rewarding. And when Book of Barkley came out, since I had written about Barkley on my blog as he was alive, a lot of people felt like he was like their dog too. So a lot of my readers of the blog asked to get an autographed copy of the book. Well, I don't disclose my home address to the public just to keep my family safe. Yes. So I had a friend whose husband had a P.O. box for his business, and he says, just give them my P.O. box, and then I'll get the check for the book, and you can autograph it and send it back. And I just charged them what I paid for the book from the publisher and just that cost and shipping. And then I would write a nice, whatever they wanted, autograph, and then I would mail it back. And I got so many thank you letters for just, I love the book, and thank you for signing it, and, my daughter's reading it, just all these little notes. And I have all those notes in a wooden box with Barkley's collar and his favorite toy, because I think he would appreciate how much he was loved, even just basically four-legged furball.
Yes. That is very, very touching, very touching. He's still a part of your life, isn't he?
Yes, I do have a new rescue lab. We decided not to get a puppy. There's so many rescue dogs out there, and we found a lab mix. We're not quite sure what she's mixed with. We think maybe flat-coated retriever. She's got kind of long, softer fur and a fluffier tail. But she was at a high kill shelter where she'd been dumped heartworm positive after having multiple litters of puppies, just dumped. And a wonderful organization called Love of Labs Indiana drove hours and rescued her and then got her veterinary care and got her well and into foster. And after being vetted to adopt, we adopted her 4 years ago. She was 8 then. She's 12 now. And she's just the sweetest little dog, totally different personality than Barkley, but just very gentle, very sweet, just always wants to be by your side. So it's been a joy to have her around. It helped heal us a lot.
It sounds like Barkley was a rascal and she's a companion. Is that fair?
Yes, rascal's a good word.
Now, your latest release, you were able to sell because of all these connections to people, and you had been, again, for the right reasons. Your agenda was the right agenda. You had professional connections with other authors and leaders in the field, and you had built up over the years a strong community that was loyal to you. No matter what you wrote, they were loyal to you as the author, and not necessarily only as the author of that specific book, which I'm a proponent of that. We write consistently enough that our readers, our clients, they discover who we are and they follow us where we go, right? Yes.
And I have people that weren't necessarily wanting to read a Christian book. They may not consider themselves Christians, although they're still beloved friends. But they read it because they liked me and they could see my personality. And one of them said, well, I expected the book to be preachy, and it wasn't. It was just more about the quiet faith that runs through a small community as we, bond together through hardship. And she said, I just loved the story, and I loved your character. I felt like she was a member of my family, even though she was just made up in your head.
That's a high compliment to you, isn't it?
Yes, I was very flattered. And like I said, it's a gift from God. I have no special training as a writer. I just sit down, and when the Spirit moves me, I just start typing away, usually with a large pot of coffee.
Viewers, I will be putting, let's say, the links to LB's website and her Amazon author page, all the links, the resources that we mentioned in this episode. I'll put those up above the video as soon as we're finished talking today. But let's go back for just a moment. Oh, let me check. Got some more activity on Facebook. Carol Campbell says, it's nice to hear the voice of a friend who lives in my computer.
Carol is one lovely lady. She is a regular reader on my book-specific blog, which is called The Book of Barkley.blogspot.com. She has 2 dogs and lives out west, and she's enjoyed my books and is a very dear friend online.
Nice. Katie's here. Katie Androsky's here. She was able to join us.
Hi, Katie.
Let me see. Let me check and see if we have anybody over here, over on my Facebook page. Excuse me. Now, you had such great sales in the first 3 months of your latest release. Before we sign off, can you give us a little bit of a rundown on those sales?
Last book I wrote sold 5,200 Kindle copies alone the first 3 months. I haven't even got the numbers in on the hardcover books, but it's 5,200. And those weren't cheap or free Kindle. We did not discount the book. I'll discount it after it's been out a year, but not when it first comes out, because you've got a lot of costs associated with getting the book out. And, there's some reviews that require payment, like Kirkus is one of the more expensive reviews. And some are free, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I took advantage of the free ones, but only with those that were reputable. I didn't go with any just people with a blog that says, well, I'll review you for free when I don't know anything about them or what type of books they like. I tend to go to a literary type of platform where it's a professional marketer like yourself that has a background in the audience and understanding of the publishing and authorship world.
Mm-hmm. You have, in every field, Christ has given you advancement. You've learned more. You've become perhaps more effective. Definitely you were effective in each environment. Now you're even more effective. And you can spread your story, your truths, your wisdom, and your personal life, the parts that you want to, via writing in your home, in this wonderful, beautiful, idyllic home. And do you foresee that you're going to continue being in law enforcement? Is that something you can, or will you at some point change over to strictly being an author? Do you know, LB?
Well, I can retire in a few years, but my husband is substantially younger than me, like 25 years younger. So when he retires, I'm going to be dead. So I think as long as he's still working, I will probably work some extra years just to put that money into retirement kitty in case of illness or accident on my husband's part. So I don't see myself writing full time. I think if I felt like I had to do it, it would take some of the joy out of it. Right now I do it because I feel driven to do it. I don't know if the Holy Spirit speaking to me or just my own creative nature, but I actually feel on certain days just driven to sit down and write. And I feel like I had to do that on any sort of schedule. Some of the joy would be lost. So yeah, I'm just happy doing it as a hobby.
Well, as a hobbyist, you're doing pretty well.
Thank you. I'm still amazed when my husband will get on an airplane going to London and he'll be send me a text message before they close the door and put the phones away that there's 2 people up in first class reading your books. And he's seen my books in bookstores in Europe, and he'll get a picture with his cell phone camera, and it tickles me to no end.
I remember you saying online one time about him strolling past a bookstore in London, and he saw and took a picture for you.
Yes, yes,
It must give him much pleasure to do that.
it does. Because I know that means that people are getting the message. It's for me, it's not about ego. It's not about the number of sales. It's not about a title, award winner or whatever. It's about the message. You're spreading a message to your book. It could be of personal faith. It could be of overcoming hardship. It could be about family. It could be all those things intertwined. But it's something that you give so that someone that's going through similar issues, because my life, though, has been very, very blessed. There's been some deep hardships throughout it, unemployment, illness, loss of family members, So my message is about growing through those dark times and using your faith to move into the light again. And that's the message I want to spread. So sales to me means people are getting the message, and hopefully it's bringing them some comfort.
I pray so, and I believe so, because every single person fits that description, even though they won't all be in your ideal target market for other variable reasons. They all fit in that overarching, under that overarching label of deep disappointment, deep pain, and coming back from it, don't we? Each of us.
Yes, we've all had the same journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how we perceive it is how we differ.
Yes.
Some take their life experience, good and bad, and become bitter and angry. Others just remain sad, and like myself, I've just learned to embrace my humor, embrace what good I have around me, even on days it may not seem so good, and just trust in the Lord that things will work out, and I'm leading the life He wants me to, even if, like my character in Small Town Rose, it's not the life I ever expected.
Personally, I would say the same thing. I wasn't reared to expect the life that I have, full of blessings, deep love, healthy relationships, it's even though there have been some hard times, because there always are, always are. I would have never dreamt when I was younger that I would have the life I have, and I praise God for it all the time, every day. I'm so grateful and tell Him so. It has been such a joy to hear your voice, to learn more about you, to hear about the books that you've written, the causes that you believe in, how to get in touch with you and your community. And again, viewers, those links will be above to her, to LB's Facebook profile and her blog. So thank you so much, LB.
Oh, thank you, Patricia. It was a lot of fun.
It's a wondrous thing to be involved with someone who's, even for a short time, where someone who is so accomplished in every arena and has reaped the rewards of Lord's years of sacrifice. And the Lord is blessing your efforts even now. And I'm just proud to know you just a little bit.
It's been a pleasure to get to know you, Patricia.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me. Viewers, thank you as well for joining both L.B. Johnson and myself for Marketers on a Mission. This has been episode number 115, The Power of an Author's Online Relationships. Next week, you know what we're going to do? We're going to start all over again, because this show is designed with you in mind. We're here every weekday at 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern to help you either develop or refine your online marketing skills. And why? So your message can spread around the globe for Christ. Until next time, I'm Patricia Durkin, the Christian Message Coach, and along with L.B. Johnson, we wish you a happy afternoon and a great weekend. Thanks very much for being here.